Could you imagine eating nothing but meat? Just meat, nothing else. The so-called carnivore diet. Well, it turns out a lot of people can imagine it, and a lot of people seem to be doing it. But is it safe? Is it healthy? These are a lot of questions that people have about this seemingly quote-unquote extreme diet. If you talk to the people who do it, a lot of people love it, and they've seen so many health benefits. If you talk to doctors and nutritionists who are traditionally trained, they think it's crazy and there's no way it can be healthy. Where's the truth? Well, science needs to catch up a little bit to say what the truth is, but now we have a study published by Dr. David Ludwig and his colleagues that give us a little bit insight into the carnivore diet and where it might go from here. I'm Dr. Brett Scher, the medical director at DietDoctor.com, and I'd love to talk about this study with you. It's called Behavioral Characteristics and Self-Reported Health Status Among 2029 Adults Consuming a Carnivore Diet, and it's published in the Current Developments in Nutrition. Now, as the title says, self-reported health status. So here's the first caveat about this study, is it really is the lowest quality evidence that exists because it's self-reported, people responding to a questionnaire that they had to fill out the forms, they had to go through the process, they reported what they were eating, they reported how they were feeling, whether they improved or didn't improve, they reported their health conditions. There was no objective testing, there was no randomization, right? So right away, low quality evidence. So you could just kind of put your hands up right there and say, look, I don't care what this shows, because it's so biased. There's a clear selection bias. But here's the thing, when something is brand new and no other studies are being done, you're not having randomized controlled trials on this done, you need to start somewhere. So this is a great place to start, to get it in the medical literature, get it in front of people so they'll start scratching their heads and saying, I want to know more. Let's design a study. Let's look at more. So that's how I see the studies. It's a great first step. So hats off to Dr. Ludwig and his crew for taking this step to look at a carnivore diet when most people would probably say, that's crazy. I don't even want to waste my time with it because it's a crazy diet. Well, is it? Not for those who are part of this study, that's for sure, because they overwhelmingly saw significant improvements. Let's go through some of the data here. So again, it was a social media survey, and over 2,000 people went through the whole process and responded. Now, of course, you can say those who hated it, who tried it and stopped it, who felt awful on it, who had, their health goes sideways on it, they probably didn't participate in this study. So since the overwhelming majority of people saw benefits, probably not a big surprise, but at least we know there are about 2,000 people who have been on a carnivore diet greater than 6 months, and the average was 14 months. And they've seen tremendous health benefits with almost no severe side effects and very little any type of side effect. So first, what are those side effects? Well, between 3 and 5% had some sort of GI side effect, 4% a muscular, about 2% a dermatologic, but 95% of the people said they improved their health, and about 90% improved their well-being. And then when you look at like specific medical conditions, 93% were either resolved or improved overweight or obesity, 74% resolved or improved or had no change in their lipids. And that's, I want to emphasize, right? Because what's the big concern about a meat-based diet with, oh my goodness, all that saturated fat, your lipids are going to be out of control, your LDL is going to be out of control. Well, 74% self-reported that they either resolved, improved, or had no change in their lipid status. And their triglyceride to HDL ratio was excellent at 1, their average triglyceride to HDL ratio. Now, their average LDL was elevated, no question about that. Their average LDL was elevated. But of course, the question then becomes, well, what does that mean in the setting of if you're improving your metabolic health and your triglyceride and HDL are excellent, if it's the larger LDL particles, if you're improving your high blood pressure, which they did, 93% resolved or improved their hypertension, 98% resolved or improved their diabetes and insulin resistance. And oh, by the way, 97% resolved or improved their GI symptoms, and 96% is a psychiatric condition. So overwhelming benefit. So the high LDL needs to be put in perspective, not ignored. By no means should it be ignored, but needs to be put in perspective for sure with all these other benefits, and then individual decisions made about that. Now, aside from lipids, the other main concern about a meat-based diet, which, it's a carnivore diet, but they were eating meat, eggs, and non-milk dairy were the three most common food groups that people were eating, mostly choosing fatty or sort of medium fatty meats and not the lean meats. So it was presumed to be sort of a higher fat, higher protein diet. They didn't actually assess the macronutrient composition, so that was an assumption based on the foods that were self-reported. But the other concern is, what about micronutrients? What about nutrient deficiencies, especially over the long term? So this study went up to 20 months, with the average being 14 months. And certainly based on the self-reported data, there were no concerns of significant deficiencies. But what about the people who didn't fill out the form? What happens, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road? So those are some of the unanswered questions that a study like this doesn't address. But like I said in the beginning, this is the first step, and this is an important first step because you got to start somewhere. Hopefully this is going to get the attention of other medical centers, maybe even some funding sources, hopefully, to do longer term trials about a carnivore diet. Now, I've said this before, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago when I heard about a carnivore diet, I thought it was crazy. I thought you'd have to be a lunatic to do a carnivore diet. It made no sense. And then I actually researched it and talked to people who did it and learned more about it. And all of a sudden it made a lot of sense, right? It's a form, on the one hand, it can be a form of an elimination diet, that you're getting rid of so many other foods that could trigger reactions to you. You're eating whole foods. You're certainly getting rid of all processed foods. You're getting a great amount of protein. You're eating low carb. And people are seeing tremendous benefits from autoimmune conditions, obviously diabetes, high blood pressure, metabolic type conditions. So if you can see these types of benefits, you really have to question, well, do we need to prove? We should probably need to prove that there's a harm before encouraging people not to do it. Now, you can find those benefits in other diets as well, but some people can't, right? Some people have tried so many different types of diets, and this is what they've settled on. And for those people, maybe a carnivore diet's the right diet. Certainly doesn't mean it's right for everybody, but certainly means it probably deserves a little bit more investigation, a little more studies before we just sweep it under the rug and say it's unhealthy. So if you want to learn more about what we know and don't know about a carnivore diet, we have a guide at dietdoctor.com titled Sinking Our Teeth into the Carnivore Diet: What's Known, What's Not. And it's clear that there's a lot that's not. But my hope is a study like this from Dr. Ludwig and his colleagues is just the beginning, that we can learn so much more about a carnivore diet and who it can be right for. Because there are subsets of the population who may really benefit from this. And is it safe to do long term? That's the type of evidence we need to. Right now we have lots of powerful anecdotes, but we need the science behind it, and this is a great first step. All right. If you thought this was helpful, please click the thumbs up and click subscribe so you'll get all the updates here from us on Diet Doctor News on YouTube. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, everybody.